today it's a pleasure to have Henry Woodman here, a visionary entrepreneur and media pioneer. Welcome, Henry.
Wow, thank you. Well, it's great to be here. Thanks, Antonis.
It's great to have you here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background?
Wow, at several decades of background. I'll start with a broad one and say, listen, I consider myself for the most part a hedonistic and opportunistic entrepreneur. I have started several sort of small businesses, and then, about 25 years ago, I started another business that pivoted into a technology business, and I sold that a couple of years ago for a technology play, which is ironic because I don't know anything about technology, meaning I do now, but I couldn't write a line of code if you put a gun to my head. So yeah. It's run the gamut when I look back and I figure, wow, how did I get here? There's a lot of connecting the dots along the way and taking advantage of opportunities that had presented themselves.
I see. That's nice. Is there a background for technology specifically that you are in there now, or you're going to transition to?
Yeah, well, when I started the technology, I went from a production company to, I was producing videos and game shows in Latin America, in Chile specifically. Mm-hmm. I fell in love with this new virtual reality technology, and I thought, this is cool. I want to produce virtual tours. I travel around, I do this. And then, the hotels and the destinations would say, how do we put these virtual tours on this new World Wide Web thingy? This is like the late 90s, right? Yeah. And of course I said, I don't know, send them a CD-ROM, because we would give them a CD-ROM and they'd take it to the trade shows and the conferences to promote their hotel or their destination. Mm-hmm. Well, ultimately I said, well, let me see what we can do to help, right? And eventually we found out that photos was an issue distributed to the internet as well, because the systems that gave you the rate and availability, they didn't carry photos at the time. So there was another problem and thus an opportunity. And eventually I morphed from production of virtual tours to distribution of virtual tours to then distribution of photos. And after building that up for more than 2 decades, that was the technology. Now, I did not know how to do anything in technology. I hired people that would do it for me and clearly understood what our vision and our goals were. And so we continued to build it out through many years because, listen, there's a moat there where it's hard for other people to do. Whereas, a camera and a computer, any kid with an interest in virtual reality is a competitor, right? Yeah. So after that, selling the company, the goal was really to fulfill a dream I had 40 years ago, which was, I wanted to produce and direct a movie for the rights to a book that I got. So ultimately, 40 years later, of course, I just published the book. It's called The Reincarnation of Marie. And that is then going to be springboarded to, we're using that concept to create and development of a TV series called Slippin', which is essentially slipping through time, thus the reincarnation angle.
All right. That sounds interesting. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the book? Reincarnation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's ironic because, it's not a business that I would get into thinking, oh, I'm going to make a fortune in producing and directing TV series. That's the 1%, right? It's a very sexy business, but it's not one that I would recommend you get into thinking this is going to make my fortune. But the book, it's called The Reincarnation of Marie because it essentially is about a guy who finds his soulmate with one problem. She died 70 years earlier, right? But he believes that he has found her reincarnation, right? There is a woman in the late 1800s called Marie Barshkerseff. She wrote a journal between 14 and 24. She died at 24 of tuberculosis. And 2 years after her death, her mother published her journal, her diary, if you will. And it was an international bestseller. 70 years later, this guy picks up the journal, he reads it, and he's like, oh my God, she's amazing. And after reading it multiple times, he's falling in love with this woman through her writing. Then he's like, oh my God, but I can't be in love with a woman. She's dead, right? He finally comes to the realization that this is not tenable. And he says, he then finds her reincarnation. Everything she wears, everything she says and dresses and talks and acts and her tastes are all from the previous Marie. So that's kind of the basis for the story. And now the series goes a bit deeper and talks about the intertwined relationships from Marie's era to the current era, and how those karma or sins of the father, or the questions of, do soulmates really exist? Is there something like that? Or, is this all there is, right? Obviously, we don't answer the question, but it brings up those topics.
Oh, nice. Sounds interesting. There's going to be a link in the description for the book, so they can go and check it out. What has been the biggest game changer for your business in the past year, you think?
Oh, wow, that is a good question. I'm going to say too, there's a link on the website called mariethestory.com, which has information about the book, the series, the author,
Right.
all that stuff. The biggest game changer, I would probably say, in short, it's the tenacity, the mindset, the ability to persevere. It's discipline. Obviously, and I tell this to entrepreneurs that I coach, that if you're interested in seeing opportunity, you need to be on the corner of prepared and lucky, right? Because if you're lucky and you're not prepared, you may never see that opportunity. If you're prepared and you're not lucky, you may never see that opportunity. So the luck part is hard to deal with because, hey, you never know. The prepared part is you're always preparing for that opportunity. You're always preparing the foundational stuff. You're always preparing and keeping your eyes open if you're looking for opportunities. And one of the things that I found was, when you're looking for some business idea or some problem that you're going to solve a problem, look everywhere. Say yes to everything, especially in areas I did not know that photos were a problem being distributed for hotels at the time. Who would have, unless you're in that business? Delivering virtual tours to Expedia, for example, then you realize, oh, there's another problem, right? So you keep looking, you say yes to everything. Eventually, when you find that great opportunity, you start to whittle it down and say, this is where I can win at, and you say no to everything else, right? So in the beginning, you say yes to everything, and eventually you say no. And a couple of things in my opinion, mindset is huge. What your thoughts are dictate what your life becomes, right? In addition, it is the network of people. If you hang out, that saying that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. If you're hanging out with people that are not very inspirational, they don't motivate, they punch the clock, they come home, they don't want to do anything except sit on the couch, have a beer, and relax, okay, that's going to be you as well. If, on the other hand, other people are like, I really am inspired to do this, I want to make a change, I want to find an opportunity, and I want to solve a problem, you too will be that way as well. So mindset, network of people that inspire you, and discipline. All easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, it's not always easy to just get rid of loser friends and replace them with winners, because if you're growing up with certain people, it's not easy to just, get rid of them now.
Yeah, it's like,
is it?
When you talk about the culture of a business, for example, you can see the group within a business that many of them are gung-ho, they know what they want to do, they're all sailing or rowing the boat in the same direction because they're clear on their energy. Whereas other companies, they're just like, oh man, they don't like it. They come in when they have to come in, they leave when when the time clock leaves, and nothing more, right?
Yeah.
So it's a difference in culture. And the same thing is the mindset of the people you hang out with. If the people you hang out with are like, yeah, I really want to go and accomplish something, and that's the case in any country, maybe harder, obviously, in other countries, but you will find people that just, want to dial it in, and you will find people that want to do more.
Exactly. And if you stuck in and stay in the game for long enough, you're going to find those people no matter where you are, I believe. Don't you think?
That's exactly right. And that's a good point. Patience. A lot of people read in the marketing, oh my God, this guy made a fortune. It took me over 20 years to build the business. And there were many times where I was inches, I mean, literally away from bankruptcy. And I mortgaged my house to pay the employees. So it wasn't easy, right? And it's not like, oh, I just started this great idea and it was all, downhill from there. No, it was a lot of bumps and hurdles and mountains to climb. So, those are the things that you have to understand. You have to overcome the obstacles. And as importantly, you have to understand that if it ain't working, pivot,
Exactly. And with that being said, what's the one mistake you made in the past year that you learned a valuable lesson from?
Well, I haven't made a lot of mistakes in the past year because I sold the business before that. So, but before, I think the biggest mistakes I made was putting too much stress on myself, thinking that the world was going to come to an end with every little problem, right?
Right.
And not trying. This is really, really hard for a type A personality to sit there and go, okay, relax, it's not going to be the end of the world. You have a roof, you have food, you have shelter, you have love, you have your health. Don't worry about, the business coming to an end or something like that. You always feel like the world is coming to an end and I've lost sleep and I'm freaking out. That's probably the thing that I would try to be more cognizant of. I think being disciplined and working out and trying to clear your mind is helpful to avoid a lot of that stress.
Right. I see. It makes sense. Is there a question you get asked most often about the business?
Ooh, is there a question? No, not really a question, but I think the challenge would be when you find an opportunity that you think, oh my God, that's a problem. Somebody should do something. Instead of saying somebody should do something, you almost say, yeah, maybe I should see and look into it. And that's where opportunities come up. You're solving a problem, if not just for yourself, but you say, I can do better, or I can make this a better mousetrap or faster. And this is a problem that I want to take care of.
Okay, I see. So instead of pointing the finger, here's the problem, that's the problem, just use the thumb saying, you know what, it's on me, on my shoulders, I can take care of it. Yeah?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I was in college, I was addicted to Pac-Man. This is the late 70s, right? I'm playing video game machines.
I'm from the 2000s. I remember. I used to play it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, this is 20 years earlier. So I'm sitting in the laundromat waiting for my clothes to dry. I got a pocket full of quarters and I'm thinking, man, this place needs a Pac-Man. So I go to my dorm room. I call every laundromat in Tucson where I went to college. And I said, you guys have video game machines? They said, no. And I'm thinking, would you like one? I'll share the revenue with you. And that was kind of a business I started while I was in college, solving a problem I had. I wanted to play video game machines. I couldn't leave the laundromat and go to the local 7-Eleven or to the mall to play. So I thought, well, we should put a video game in here just so I don't have to study because I didn't want to, but I can put my quarters in there and let the time go by and play a video machine. And that was kind of the idea.
Nice. Did it work?
Yeah, it worked really well. By the time I graduated, I had video games in most of the laundromats. And before I went to college, I sold the business. And what I did is I had them pay me a little bit of money every single month for a year. It wasn't a lot of money, obviously, but I got enough money so that I didn't have to stress in LA about, oh, where am I going to work? I can't live. I need money to survive. So I got paid a little bit of money so that I had a little bit of an allowance in Los Angeles when I left college.
Nice. That's great work. Is there a piece of advice you would give to your younger self starting out as an entrepreneur?
I would have continued. It's funny because the dream I had when I left college was to go to Los Angeles and produce and direct movies, and that really didn't happen. I think it's just follow where those dots connect, because I now talk to some producers and they go, man, you did it right. You built a tech company, you sold it. Now you have the ability to do whatever you want to do, as opposed to looking for your next production gig every couple of months or years, right?
Yeah.
And not that I would recommend that. I mean, it's not a great idea to start a business. It's just do what you love, but also keep an eye open for opportunity. And I think I did it. There are a lot of things I look back and I'm like, man, that was tough. But I don't know that I would have changed anything, because many of those challenges and hurdles helped me learn and grow. I used to joke with people and I would say, listen, if this doesn't work out, my next question to you would be, would you like fries with that burger? Right? Because this is it, because I don't really have a backup. Right? If it's not working, I got to find a pivot, but I'm very tenacious and I'm not going to quit. So I don't know, because there were times where I really thought I was going to go bankrupt, and I kept thinking, well, what exactly will I do? What are my skills? I got to find something. Right? So I think that you kind of put yourself into that mode and find a way around the obstacles.
Understand. That's nice. Okay, let's dive into the bonus section. I'll say a word and a phrase, and you must reply with the first thought that comes to your mind, one word if possible, and then we explain later. Okay? Good. First one, entrepreneurship.
Challenging.
Mm-hmm. Entertainment and media.
1%.
Mm-hmm. Health and fitness.
Paramount.
Books.
Useful.
Storytelling.
Necessary to sell. That was necessary.
Yeah. An experience.
Double-edged sword.
Okay. Entertainment and media, you said 1%.
1%. Yeah.
Why 1%?
Because it's a great and sexy business, but it's that 1% of the people who are in the business are actually making a decent living, right? It's anything in the arts, whether it's music or acting or producing. It's a tough way to go because it's generally not an ongoing concern. There are very few people that make enough money to have a good living, that you say, listen, I want to follow my passion, I want to act, but yet you're, waiting tables or you're working a side job so that you can, go to auditions and do other things. So that's why I say 1%. It's hypocritical because I'm going into that business now, but I'm very well aware that I'm not doing it because I need to make a fortune or I need to make money to survive. I'm doing it because it's a passion now.
Health and fitness. You mentioned Paramount. Yeah?
Yes.
I
yeah.
see.
Paramount. Listen, you all means it's the most important thing. It's at the top.
Why at the top?
Because without health and fitness, you can't buy that. There's no money in the world. There's no way that you can say, listen, I am going to work my ass off. I'm going to disregard my health. I'm not going to go and get fit. I'm just going to make a ton of money. Then you make the money. Let's just say you do, right? And you're miserable and you have diseases and you're overweight and you've got things that you can't fix with money. What good is all that money? You're miserable, right? The most important thing, bar none, is your health, right? There are many people with millions, if not billions of dollars that have issues with their health and they go, man, I would give it all up just to have a healthy body. We all know that. So the most important thing, and this, when I ran my business, I used to take my lunch break and go swim every day. It was my, I would walk the dogs in the morning. I would swim in the afternoon. And I would take it easy with, my fitness weights and stuff on the weekend. So I was like 6-7 days a week doing something to maintain my my physical health. And it's also important your mental health, like mindfulness and try not to stress. Right. And it becomes a virtuous spiral if you're not doing something to alleviate the stress, right? Let's say you're working out, but if you do nothing, Then you're sitting there, you're feeling bad, you're eating things to comfort food, and that generally means crappy food, chips and sugary foods, and you just perpetuate the problem, right? Going to a gym or going to work out, swim, tennis, whatever it is, you're essentially letting some energies out and you're clearing your mind. And swimming for me was, there was nothing to listen to, nothing to look at, and it was a very cathartic way to think through what's going on in my life, right?
Yeah. Experience?
I said double-edged sword because, I think there's tremendous need for experience in entrepreneurship because you don't know what you don't know. But there are people who come from, let's say, large corporate settings and they have experience in running a certain division of a company. And they think, I know what I'm doing. I have experience. I can start a small business. Not really. It's a different animal. Yeah, because I hired people who came from large, Fortune 50 companies, and they didn't know how to function in a small business where multiple people wear where one person wears multiple hats. So I say experience is good, but the type of experience, you know what I mean? If you start a business and somebody gives you money to start the business, and I say this all the time, if I knew how to raise money, I probably would have raised money. I would have spent it all. I would have screwed it up and I would have bankrupted the company. But having to bootstrap and learn things and make those mistakes and learn from those mistakes is more helpful than saying, look, I know what I'm doing. No, just give me more money. We'll get through it. Not necessarily. Or I haven't had the experience of running a small company, but I am experienced because I've been a manager at this Fortune 500 company for the last 2 decades. You know what I mean? That's why I said double-edged sword.
Yeah. It makes sense. When you are a manager in X company, you are responsible for certain duties, right? If you think just because you're a manager, you're going to go and start your own business because you think you are the best, who's going to do, they're going to realize soon who's going to do the website, who's going to do the writing, who's going to do the designing, who's going to recruit the people, who's going to do the scripts, who's going to do the social media. And this is just a few of the things.
They were working at a company that already had a clear market share. They had a vision, they had a mission, they had KPIs, they had structure with processes and procedures. You got to do all that on your own, right? You got to figure out where you're going. You got to figure out how to hire the people that are going to join you on that mission. You got to figure out how you're going to measure the health of the progress of the company, how you're going to build the foundation to scale. These are all really hard things to do.
Exactly. Well, we're built different. So thank God for that.
Yep.
Right. Any last word from Henry Woodman before we close the pod?
Thank you. I am blessed, and thank you all for listening. I hope if you buy The Reincarnation of Marie, I hope you like it. And if anybody does, you on the website that I mentioned, mariethestory.com, there's my LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram pages. So you're more than welcome to connect. If you have questions or you want to comment, you're more than welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here. And that was Henry Woodman, ladies and gentlemen.